Hello and welcome back to the channel, and let's get back into a little bit of Fruit Machine emulation. I have been neglecting it somewhat recently. It's over 2 weeks since I did a video about Fruit Machine emulation. Those pesky online slots and skill with prizes machines have been getting in the way. So let's return to my first love here, which is Fruit Machine emulation, and we'll come in with a little bit of a superstar here, which is 777 Heaven. Now there's two things going on here. One is this absolutely gorgeous layout by Altered Emu, and the other is the machine itself, and these two things come together to make something really rather special. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the machine first, then I'll talk about the layout, and then we will play the machine itself. Now, 777 Heaven is, I think, a classic, iconic Fruit Machine. Now, if you watch Dear Tony from RLMS Sales when he's introducing his Fruit Machines, I know the man's doing his job and he has to try and make these things sound exciting, but it's so easy to overuse words like classic and iconic and masterpiece, those real kind of superlatives. But I think that you can legitimately apply those words to this machine here, 777 Heaven, because these things had a massive impact when they were first released in 1990, 1991, because they were absolutely everywhere. These things arrived en masse, and they were a real crossover machine as well, because every single arcade had at least one of these. Even like your fairly dingy backstreet arcades would find a budget to get one of these things onto their premises. Once you got up to, kind of more, even smaller or mid-sized arcades in town centres, they'd often have more than one of these. And the seaside arcades, if you remember, say Blackpool back in the day with Mr. B's and Funland and Coral Island, they would have rows upon rows of these things. So they were a very significant addition to the Fruit Machine scene. I would love to know how many of these projects sold, because they were absolutely ubiquitous. You could not go to an arcade without seeing one or more of these 777 Heaven machines, depending on how large the arcade was. And they were also what I would call, say, a crossover machine. These things were so popular that they were in pubs as well, because back in sort of 1991, 92, pubs would have low-tech machines as well. They were not just the preserves of the arcades, and I have very clear memories of playing a variety of low-tech machines in Radcliffe, Bury and Bolton in sort of 91, 92, and definitely 777 Heaven was present in more than just a couple of pubs. They were popular even in pubs. And it's easy to see why, because they were easy to play, they were a low-tech, there was nothing too complex about them, and I guess everyone felt that they had a reasonable chance at doing okay out of them. I recall that you could get in Joseph Holt's pubs in Radcliffe, 2 or 3 of the Joseph Holt's pubs in Radcliffe, you could get a pint of Joseph Holt's bitter. Holt's is bitter for under £1, just about. It was like 98p or 99p. And it was not unusual to see like an old boy go up to the bar, he had a couple of mates with him, he'd get 3 pints of Holtz's and it'd come to £2.97. He'd pay with a fiver and he'd get £2 coins back in his change, and he would put it into the 777 Heaven. Because it's not like say, Double Chance, which was another machine that was around at the time, which was more of a skill-based high-tech machine, which was probably a little bit alarming to him. He'd have a go at 777 Heaven. These things made money. I remember them being in arcades absolutely everywhere. They were all over the place. And even though the machine, if you look at it now, it looks a little bit old-fashioned, it looks a little bit basic, but you've got to put it into context. This thing is going back the best part of 28 years or thereabouts. And The cabinet itself was good looking. It had decent lighting. It had decent, well, half decent sound. It was a step above the bloopy bleepy stuff that the older technologies had had. And it looked good in arcades. It looked good in pubs. And I think that is conveyed here by the layout. And we'll talk a little bit about the layout itself now. This is by Altered Emu. He has been around on the Fruit Machine emulation scene pretty much since day one. He's gone by more than one name over the years. I think Fusion is another one that he's had. He doesn't release many layouts, but when he does release a DX, you want to pay attention to it. And he's one of those designers who kind of raised the bar very early on, where I don't want to do a list because you're sort of scared of missing somebody off, but you've got Altered Emu, you've got Pook, you've got Dad, you've got Ploggy when he started releasing lights, you've got, say, Retro Fruit with his M1A Madness, all that, these people who kind of showed early on what it was possible to do, even with the more basic tools that were available in the emulator then, what it was possible to do with a DX layout, and he has absolutely surpassed himself here. Now, as I understand it, Wizard has coded in some clever new lamping trickery with version 6 and 6.1 of the emulator, blended lamps and all that kind of thing. I can't say I know too much about that sort of stuff. I can hack about in layouts at best. I have no artistic skills whatsoever, so I can't comment on the technical side of it per se, other than to relay to you how gorgeous this layout looks, and I hope it's coming through in the YouTube video here. And for the record, this is a native 4K layout. If you have a 4K screen that you can pipe this layout to, I would recommend that you do that. Now, my PC monitor is not 4K, it's only a 1440p screen, 2560 by 1440, so I cannot run this at the layout's native res on my monitor, but I did take the time just to pipe it out to my 4K 55-inch telly that I got a few weeks ago for my Xbox One X, just to have a look at this. And if you can fire this up on a big 4K screen in a darkened room, honestly, it is truly a thing of beauty. It really is. And you can see what he's gone for here. It's like a kind of slightly burned in, used kind of look. This machine is not supposed to look like it's just rolled off the factory. So you can see in the artwork here that this is a machine that's been on site for a few years and it's been used a bit. We've even got like a sort of reflection of a fluorescent neon tube over the reels there. So all that said, I will use those two words. I think this is an iconic Fruit Machine, and I genuinely think this is a classic Fruit Machine. It is done full justice here by this remarkably beautiful DX layout. Now, the other thing that I'll draw your attention to here, if I may, is the stats here, because I have used, I know I keep going on about autoplay, and I will not stop doing it, I make no apologies for that, because I used autoplay to put over £2,400 through this. So this has had a lot of money through it. It should be, well, of course it will be very nicely settled down. It's only a £4.80 jackpot machine, and I don't know exactly what state it's in. What I can say is that autoplay has done a very good job of keeping it fairly close to its target percentage of 86%. It's running a little bit behind at the moment, but not by much. And I haven't done any kind of dry run on this. Sometimes with these videos, I like to do a dry run so I know what I'm doing, and I'm kind of confident that the machine will be doing the thing that I'm trying to demonstrate. It's not necessary with this. It may streak, it may not. I honestly don't know. If it doesn't streak, it doesn't really make any difference because it won't change what this video is about. We all know what a streak is. We all know that these low-techs of this era, these £4.80 and £6 token jackpot machines, and particularly the low-techs, they had to streak because paying 20p a go for a £4.80 token jackpot, if that then killed the machine and it wanted another £5 or £6 off you before it would pay out another £4.80 jackpot, nobody would be interested in that. So of course what they did was they saved their value, and periodically they would streak and they'd throw 30, 40, 50, 60 pounds of wins at you in very quick succession. 777 Heaven, I recall this thing streaking for about 30 or 40 quid if you could catch it right. The downside of that, of course, is that if you happen to play one of these after it had streaked, they could still take, even on these small stakes and small jackpots, they were still capable of taking a fair chunk of cash off you. So, that is far. You know, I should have been playing this before. let's put some money in. Now we'll put a tenner in to start off with, and I will go to current session stats, and let's see what kind of mood we can find this in. Now there isn't really I suppose I could take £1.20. There isn't really a huge amount of complexity to the... Oh, there we are now. Let's do the ambitious hold. Let's do the ambitious hold and see if it goes for it, which it hasn't. So I've only got the pound there. I mean, there's not much to them, and I think this is why they were possibly so popular, is that I'm getting a lot of wins here, but they're not really what you want, are they? I think this is why they were so popular, is because everyone felt that they could play them. There we go. We'll get our 3 nudges with our... Is it up there? Oh, I haven't got draggable reels. Oh, I'll have to turn draggable reels on. Everyone felt that they could play these. People didn't necessarily feel that they were kind of out of their depth as they may have done with some of the high-techs that were around. Oh, you know what? I actually nudged the wrong reel there. Oh, it's held after nudges, though, so it doesn't matter. It has held after nudges for the £4.80, and that's my favourite way to get the £4.80, is the boxed double bars, because you get that nice doubling of the win. And it can hold. Any of these wins can hold, so let's let that count up and see what it wants to do. Any chance of a hold? No, doesn't look like it. You know what, I'm going to try this again. A little bit optimistic. Oh, and it's done that again. But I can understand why these things crossed over into the pubs, along with a few other low-techs of the time. You can see them appealing to a different demographic than would want to play the high-techs. And the thing with these is that kind of everyone wanted to play them. It's, I have... Oh, there we go. Well, I know you don't have to press... I know you don't have to hold them all and press cancel, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I do recall that with these 777 Heavens, me and my mates were just kind of getting into fruit machines, and one of the guys, his older brother, we were round at his house, round at the house one day, and he imparted to us this secret knowledge that he had come across, which was holds after nudges and the things with the boxes. So if you get hold after nudges, just hold them all and press cancel and let the reel spin, and you will get the it will bring the win in. And also if you get the boxes, if you hold them all, you'll get a nudge, and if you hold them all and then cancel and let them spin, you'll get 3 nudges, and so on. And we didn't know about this. We didn't know about any of this, so we were all super excited, thinking that surely this was the route to all kinds of riches. So we actually took it upon ourselves to get the train out to Blackpool. Oh, there we are. Well, we'll certainly hold all those for 1 nudge. We took it upon ourselves to get the train out to Blackpool, thinking, you know what, with this, all the holding the boxes and cancelling after nudges and all that stuff, surely we're going to be quids in. We can't lose. We're going to make a fortune. So we went out to Blackpool, armed with our cash, went down to the seaside arcades. Yeah, if you ever went to Blackpool back in the day, it was Mr. B's, and it was Coral Island and Funland, all that kind of thing. And we thought that we couldn't lose, because we heard that these were the methods that you could do on these kind of low-tech Bar XE 777 Heaven style machines. And you can imagine how that went, which is to say not very well, because it turned out, of course, that we were the last people in the world to know about this stuff. So we didn't quite make out like the bandits we were expecting to on that trip. But I do have a lot of memories of playing these machines in pubs and arcades of the time. The problem, I don't seem to have draggable reels here. I'll have to go into the emulator preferences and turn on draggable reels, because I have got the latest version of the emulator here. Wizard has updated this a couple of times in the last few days. If you've got version 6. Let's try that. No. If you've got version 6.1 of the emulator, oh, there we are. That's fantastic. If you've got version 6.1 of the emulator, you may just want to check out Desert Island Fruits or the Mecha, because Wizard has released a couple of bug fixes to it in the last week or so, the last week or two since it was released, just to fix a few little glitches. And I am running the latest version of it here. I've got to be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure if it's a layout thing or an emulator thing, but I don't appear to have draggable reels at the moment for some reason. I don't really know why. So we've nearly hit the bank limit of 30 quid here. Now, this machine has been emulated for many years. I mean, MFME V3, which was the version of the emulator that originally added support for this technology that 777 Heaven runs on, which is called Procon. That was released back in 2004, 2005, something like that. So Procon has been emulated for a long time. Hang on, that will now take us over the bank limit. So the technology itself has been emulated for a long time, and we have had layouts for 777 Heaven for the best part of maybe 13 years, something like that now. We've had classics for 777 Heaven and many other Project Low-Techs that use the Procon technology. We've had DXs as well. I mean, there was a very good Compost Corner £4.80 DX for this machine, which we've had for many years. So these machines have been playable in the emulator. Project, as you can imagine, they absolutely ragged the arse out of this. They did all kinds of upgrades and different versions of it. It saw the £6 jackpot, it saw the £10 jackpot, and it even saw some kind of re-release on the £15 jackpot as well. So they absolutely got their money's worth out of this thing, because it did so well originally that they just kind of kept releasing new versions of it. But it has been playable in the emulator for quite some time. However, this, I think, needless to say, is going to go straight to the top of the pile in terms of the layout to play for this. And this layout here has only been released in the last week or so over at Desert Island Fruits, and I think it deserved to have a little bit of attention drawn to it, because it is, I'm going to try that again. There we are, finally it happened. I quite like playing these low-tech machines, and what I will often do with low-techs of this kind, and I did it previously with the Compost Corner DX of this, what I'll do is fire it up and just see how much money I have to put in to hit the bank limit, and then I'll win or lose, I'll close it down after that, and then just come back to it at some point in the future later and just rinse, wash, repeat. I just find these good fun to play. They're not too demanding, and if, like me, if you're of a certain age, you'll probably be rather nostalgic for these machines, and I am really rather nostalgic for 777 Heaven. I'm still not sure, by the way, if I'd necessarily classify this as a streak. I'm certainly winning on it, but it's not that absolute jackpot after jackpot, top win after top win. This to me doesn't feel like a streak. It's more a sort of enriched period, I would say. This to me is not a streak, and I don't think I would classify it as a streak, and certainly now, because on the true streak it would be like every credit or every 2 credits, every 3 credits maybe, you would be getting the triple bars or a jackpot, or you'd certainly be getting something on a very, very regular basis. And I did have a little enriched period there, but unfortunately it does seem to have ended. So I'll collect that out and see where we're up to. Obviously I've certainly won on this, I mean there's no doubt about that. Let's get my profit and loss figures, there we are. But I don't think it's going to be the streak. I don't really know what autoplay did, because once I'd got it going and got a sort of a selection of settings that I was happy with, I just left it going overnight. I turned my monitor off and went to bed, and the thing was still happily running the next morning, and it was up over £2,000 through at that point. So, but somehow, one way or another, it just seemed to keep. Go on, we'll try that. Oh, one way or another, it still seemed to keep fairly close to percentage. And like all low techs, what this is quite happy to do is once it wants to give you a win, it will just drop it. Oh, that would have been a nice hold. It will just drop it straight in on the win line. So it looks to me there's no streak here, I'm afraid. We haven't had a streak. Let's give it a few more credits, and I think it's kind of whatever was happening is kind of finished now as well, hasn't it? So there you go. That is 777 heaven. I mean, there's not, once you get into the machine, there's not really a huge amount to say about it in terms of playing method or complexity or anything like that. It is fundamentally a fairly simple low-tech machine. There isn't a huge amount to it, but it's enjoyable to play, and it was a significant machine when it was originally released. If you weren't around at the time, or you weren't into machines or arcades at the time, you won't remember, but if you were, same as me, you will remember that these things just proliferated all across the arcade landscape and then spilled over into the pubs as well. On top of that now, with the new lamping techniques which are available in the latest versions of the emulator, along with altered emu's skills at creating such a gorgeous looking layout, what we now have, I think it's probably fair to say that we now have the definitive version of this machine to play on our PCs. It's emulated perfectly, and we have, I mean, you can't necessarily use the word perfect to describe a layout. I would say that this is very close to being the perfect layout, and if you can get this piped to a 4K screen, turn the lights off and just kind of admire it in a darkened room, cannot stress enough that it really is a thing of beauty if you can get it on a big enough screen and properly do it justice. I want to do that this time because I wasn't having much success the other way. So after all that, I think I've won a few bob. I certainly haven't had a streak. I've won a few quid, but it's not been great. I think what I won about £5. We'll try £1 more. That's the thing with these low techs. It's just so easy to just just put another couple of quid in and carry on doing that, which is how I can kind of play these things. Is just I find it's and obviously going to put £1 in there to see if it holds all the reels for you one nudge, and it didn't. So not a huge amount extra to say about this. It's a fantastic machine. I find it very playable. Looking at the stats on the previous DX for this, I've put over £1,000 through the Compost Corner DX for this machine over the years. So it is one that I play, and it is one that I return to. And now that there's this layout to play for it, I think that will be happening on a more regular basis. So there you go. That is 777 Heaven. Make sure that you are using the latest version of the emulator. Certainly the thread at Desert Island Fruits is being kept up to date. I'm sure it is at the Mecca as well. I believe there are some optimizations and changes in the latest version of this layout to make sure that it runs a little bit smoother when it's in scaled down mode as well, because it can be a little bit demanding on your hardware. And if you can have a look at this in 4K, it's worth taking the time to do so because it is absolutely gorgeous. So there you go. That's 777 Heaven. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. But for now, goodbye.